Previously on Midnight Frights.
A package? Oh, I think it's a VHS tape. I mean, I guess I'll pop it in. Whoa. We're throwing this out. That is crazy. Why would somebody send me this? I don't know what the hell that was. Hold up. Is that the same tape? Hey, what are you doing?
I'm just trying to sign up for this cybersecurity thing I saw on YouTube.
Cybersecurity? Why do you need that?
Seriously? Why? I don't know, dude. Maybe it has to do with the fact that we get this weird tape in the mail. Okay, I'm home alone. I'm scared. I watch it and I see what I think is one of my friends kidnapped, probably killed by now, right? And you have the audacity to walk in and ask me why I'm purchasing cybersecurity. Maybe if we had something like Aura, the sponsor of today's video, we wouldn't be in this predicament. Now would we? And yes, this is blatant product placement, but can you blame me? Okay, Aura, they brought back this series, they made this video possible. Maybe you check them out after this video. Okay, we'll talk about them a little bit later. But back to being mad.
Okay, it's fine. Just get it if it's such a big deal to you. Jeez.
I'm just scared is all. Okay? Even the police don't know what to do with this footage. And I'm just worried. We haven't heard from him in a few weeks, and I don't know. Okay? Maybe this will help us.
No way, he's actually calling me. Oh my god, thank god. Hello?
It's been a while.
Yeah, no shit. You haven't answered our calls for weeks. We got this weird package in the mail. I'll explain everything later. Okay, but are you good?
Yeah, I know you guys are worried. Just trust me, I can explain everything. Alright, I nearly escaped my life and...
Yeah, I know. No, of course, man. I mean, we should probably tell the police, to stop their chase too while we're at it, because I'm sure they're going crazy.
Honestly, all I need right now is for someone to come and pick me up from where I'm at.
Well, I mean,
I'm just glad that you're okay, man. I'll leave right now. I'm free right now. I'll leave literally right now and see what's up. Because, this is crazy. I'm more than okay. Just get here as soon as you can.
The attack warning. If an attack is expected, the sirens will sound a rising and falling note like this. Next, the fallout warning. When fallout is expected, you will hear 3 bangs in short succession.
during the 1970s, tensions were at an all-time high, given the state the world was in, as it would be nearly 20 years until the Cold War would come to an end. In the meantime, the British government took it upon themselves to produce what I believe to be the world's first analog horror series. Only, instead of it being a work of mere fiction, it was real. What you're watching comes from a 20-part series produced by the corporation known as the Home Office. This series was simply titled Protect and Survive. It was created with the intention of being a last-ditch effort to make sure that all of their people would be taken care of in the case of nuclear fallout. And as one might expect from a series like this, it goes over pretty much everything to do when the bombs drop. From what nuclear explosions are, to which room is safest in your house, and even going into extreme detail on what to do during the aftermath of such an event. There are lots of details that make the creation of this series quite disturbing, so I think it's best to start from how we even found out about its existence. Because of the nature of this series, it was initially kept a secret. So secret, in fact, that Roger Lim, who produced the chilling music for Protect and Survive, went as far as handing over the tapes to producer Bruce Allen while they were in an alley. It was meant to be kept a secret and aired only if the government ever caught wind of a nuclear attack happening within 72 hours or less. During the lingering 3 days of the impending attack in this imaginary scenario, they would play this series on every television until this happened. You might be asking yourself, if this was so secret to the point of someone having to meet another person in the back of an alley just to hand out the tapes, how exactly do we know about it now and even have archived footage? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It was leaked. It's a tale as old as time, especially in today's day and age where tons of movies and series get leaked every other day. This series got leaked onto an episode of BBC's Panorama and also leaked onto another documentary that was smaller at the time. But both of these leaks utilized a few excerpts from Protect and Survive, which got the public asking, what exactly had we just seen and where was it from? And eventually they got a taste of what had been created in the background while the entire world was in panic. The Protect and Survive pamphlet was made widely available shortly after to the general public, which contains much of the same content from the film series, such as how to build a safer room within your safe room, what supplies you should be stocking up on, and visual indicators of what the warning sounds will sound like, as if you could hear the pages. But none of what's in the pamphlet compares to the tone and vibe of the original film series. Just take a listen to the closing jingle that would play at the end of each episode. It's so eerie and downright chilling. And this is supposed to be a series that calms the viewer while they experience nuclear fallout. There's nothing calming about this. Not only that, but just the drastic contrast between the context of what's being talked about versus the calm voice of the narrator. It creates this truly disconcerting atmosphere. And when you combine that with the old technology of the time and the Helvetica font, it gives off extreme analog horror vibes. The analog stop motion that you can see and the faint TV hum that can be heard really created a feeling of suspense the entire time that I watched. There were moments where I really felt like something was going to come out of the shadows and jump at the screen. But none of this compares to what I believe to be the most controversial part of this series, which is the episode titled Casualties. It's in this episode that the narrator describes what to do with the dead bodies from the nuclear attack. But not just any dead bodies. The dead bodies of your loved ones that passed away while you were in the room that you decided to take refuge in. And I'm being dead serious. The narrator actually has this to say in extreme detail.
If anyone dies while you are kept in your fallout room, move the body to another room in the house. Label the body with name and address, and cover it as tightly as possible in polythene, paper, sheets, or blankets. Tie a second card to the covering. The radio will advise you what to do about taking the body away for burial. If, however, you have had a body in the house for more than 5 days, and if it is safe to go outside, then you should bury the body for the time being in a trench or cover it with earth and mark the spot of the burial.
Should you want to experience the eerie vibe of Protect and Survive, I'll leave a link below because it was honestly quite the experience the first time around. You should have seen this part coming. You saw it in the skit already. If you would allow me a minute to talk about the sponsor that made this volume possible. Aura. In today's day and age, with how easy it is for databases to be breached and have our names, addresses, and passwords exposed, cybersecurity is very much a necessity, especially when it comes to those annoying spam calls that never seem to stop coming. And I bet they didn't know that one of the reasons that happens is because big companies can't keep our data safe. I mean, even recently, AT&T revealed that nearly all their customers' calls and text records have been exposed in this massive data breach. And it hasn't even been a few months since they admitted over 70 million of their users' social security numbers ended up somewhere on the internet or the dark web. And the logs that were stolen also contain a record of every number AT&T customers called or texted. So even if you don't use AT&T yourself, if someone who texted you did, then your number has also been exposed to this. So this is where Aura comes in to protect you. Since having the app myself, I've been alerted several times about any fishy activity, whether it be on my credit, possible data breaches, and has even removed my information from those pesky data broker sites, which has made my life a lot better because now I receive a lot less spam calls and texts. Not only that, but they offer a VPN service, a password manager, antivirus, and even identity theft insurance. You get everything I mentioned in an all-in-one app at one affordable price. Keeping your data safe has never been easier, so please check out aura.com/everydaytheorist, where you'll be getting your first 2 weeks for free. Go ahead and check out the link below because, I mean, who doesn't want to keep their data safe, right? And a massive thank you to Aura for sponsoring today's video. Now back to the next story, which is even more disturbing than the first. Crowds. I hate them. No matter what shape or form they come in, they always suck. The early 2010 Black Friday chaos, a new TikTok it spot opened up, or simply a crowd of people forming because they are anxiously awaiting something amazing to happen. It seems as though death among crowds are becoming more and more prevalent each day, and more morbid, I might add, as was the case with the Travis Scott concert. But this story takes us all the way back to 2006, on the set of the popular Philippine variety show, Wowowee. From what I can tell, this was a game show similar to what you might expect. A talkative host that would bring in people from the crowd with the enticing chance to win some cash. And even though you might see tons of people having a good time in the footage that remains archived online, behind those smiles and laughs that made this TV show what it was, lies one of the darkest stories I've heard in regards to a television show, as this program is stated to not only have had multiple deaths linked to it, but it's regarded as having the highest death toll in game show history.
Mawili sa mainit na sorpresa ng Wowowee. Up next.
Normally, this game show was shot and filmed out in a studio in Quezon City in the Philippines. But due to their upcoming anniversary of Wowowee, they decided to instead film this special episode at the Phil Sports Stadium, which would be able to house way more people. There's a couple of important things to note leading up to this event that caused this tragedy to happen. The first one was the slope that the entire stadium was set up on. In front of where people were to line up, it's said on many articles and many websites that it sloped down into the gates of the Phil Sports Stadium. So obviously, if you haven't figured it out by now, that's bad for crowds, because what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to end up toppling over each other, and whoever's in front, close to the gate, is probably going to get smushed. And the other reason why this tragedy happened was, well, there was a big crowd. The show was popular, right? Of course, fans of the show found out about this special filming day prior to the day that it was going to happen. And they began piling up in front of the stadium in the hopes of getting inside and being picked to get a chance at winning some money. Just for context, this was not your typical fan craze, as even the articles express what I'm about to say. Close to half of the people in the Philippines, at least during this time, lived on less than 5 USD. Or the articles state it was 100 pesos, which is around 5 USD. So game shows like Wowowee are prone to becoming extremely popular because they fuel that desire to escape poverty, which is something I'm sure most of us can relate to. A lot of these people were already fighting to be first in line because of the crazy prizes that were being offered, from houses to minibuses to substantial cash prizes. It was a very enticing episode to be on, which is no wonder why they used the Phil Sports Arena, which could house around 19,000 people. Only problem was, about 30,000 people showed up when it came to the day of filming. But what turned this already increasing problem into an absolute tragedy was the announcement that came at 6 a.m. It was at this time that they announced the first 300 people would be given free tickets to come inside and participate in the show itself. This alone sent the crowd from kind of stabilized to a complete fight for the death. If you've seen clips from the previously mentioned Travis Scott concert, this was much of the same. One can only imagine the thought running through those unfortunate enough to be in front as they were pressed up against the gates that led into the stadium. It's stated that there were so many people pressing up against this gate that even when they tried to open it, it was damn near impossible. And that was just what happened on the day of filming. I forgot to mention what happened the day before. A few individuals that camped out the night prior expressed that people had began dying way before they'd attempted to open the gates. As one of the people there puts it, there were already people crushed dead lying on the ground in front. Nearly 84 people lost their life that day, with most of them being of elderly age, and over 600 being injured and needing to be taken away to assess said injuries. What boggles my mind is how avoidable this situation was. I mean, you walk outside and you see this mass of people lined up on a steep incline, and you still choose to announce that only 300 of them are going to be allowed inside. Like, what did you expect to happen? And the Wowowee organizers claimed time and time again that they simply wanted to provide for the poor and create a fun time for those unfortunate few. Even the government tried spinning this story into a narrative of poverty being the sole purpose of this tragedy. And while it's a little bit true, it completely ignores the cause of this incident, which is the Wowowee production team and their poor planning for such a tremendous occasion. Let me know what you think of this story below, because I feel as though there should have been some kind of repercussion that the studio faced besides simple financial assistance to the victims' injuries. Because while they did do that, they only did so in return for the promise of them not fighting back in court. I don't think I've talked about a disturbing game since my video on Sad Satan, and I'll admit this one only came to me through a random TikTok that I happened to see, but I really wish that I hadn't. Because this is probably one of the most vile, disgusting games I've ever heard of. A simple Google search will bring you to a Reddit thread that describes the game fully, and well, it's a game that's all about SA. If this is something you don't feel that you can handle hearing about, please take the warning and just skip to the next story. I'm going to give you a few fair seconds to go ahead and do that because I want everyone to feel as though I gave them a proper amount of time to skip ahead. If you're still here, let's talk about it. So, some things to note about 177 is it seems to be entirely real, right? Most of the time when I find games like this, they end up being solely made to fuel some creepypasta or ARG, but this one looks as though it was made by a legit software company. The two companies in question that made it are the first one, which is accredited to making 177, which is Macadamia Soft. And the company that owns Macadamia Soft, or claims to have owned Macadamia Soft, is DB Soft, which has been accredited with many other video games under their belt since the 1980s. What's peculiar is why the hell this game was made at all. Right, the title of this game is in reference to the Japanese Criminal Code. Under Article 177 of the Penal Code, it reads, "A person found guilty of forcibly committing with another person over the age of 13 years old may be imprisoned." So already based off that description, you can tell that this game was clearly made with this idea in mind. And the gameplay is no different. The entire game is you playing as a man whose sole purpose is to SA this woman who is running away from you. You run and dodge obstacles along the way until finally you get what the assaulter wants. And what's even more insane than just making this game a reality was the time that the developer took in to making the playable section where you do the deed. There's even a desire bar in the top right, which I'm sure you can imagine is there for a reason. This game is incredibly disgusting and even has a quote-unquote bad ending where you do the deed and you get arrested, with the good ending being this screen that simply states, "Well, I'm beaten." As if you went to shop for groceries and you just got back home. I really can't fathom who made this and why. I've tried searching for names. I don't know who made it. And even if you search Macadamia Soft, the only other missing link that you might find is just another game, which by the looks of the cover look to be much of the same. So I wouldn't even recommend wanting to go down that rabbit hole. But if anyone knows who created this game and why, leave it down below. I'm sure a lot of us would like to put a face to this game because it's just crazy. I really don't understand what would compel somebody to make something as gross as this. But because I had to subject my eyes to it, I gotta subject yours. And hopefully I saved you the Google search or the curiosity of wanting to know what's in the gameplay. In Nigeria, a popular way to get around is through the use of these motorcycle taxis, otherwise known as Okadas. And a man by the name of Kazim was among these motorcycle taxi drivers that would frequently take jobs along the rest of the Okada community in Ibadan, Nigeria. On a random day in March, Kazim had taken what would be his last job for the evening by transporting 2 passengers. Now, as the day turned to night, the rest of the Okada drivers noticed something strange after they all got back from their respective jobs. Local driver Kazim was nowhere to be found. While your first instinct is to believe that he would still be out on his job driving someone somewhere, it's important to note that Okadas are typically taken only as a last resort. Usually, they're tasked with driving somewhere close, but with the intention of getting there extra fast. So they never drive too far. This was in drastic contrast to Kazim's last job, as he'd been gone for nearly hours at this point. Unbeknownst to everyone at the time, Kazim had been lured, kidnapped, and taken to a terrible sight in the depths of the forest of Ibadan. He was presented with bodies lying on the ground, people starving in the basements of a warehouse that he was locked in, and a situation that he thought he'd never escape from. Luckily, he kept a hidden cell phone on him that he would use to contact help. On March 22nd of 2014, some of the Okada drivers received these distressing text messages from Kazim, describing the absolute horrors that he was experiencing in the forest of Ibadan. Several of the Okada drivers report that they tried several times to call him back, but he would never answer. A search party was formed almost immediately, and before you ask, why didn't they just call the police? They did. The police just didn't respond back. Now, there are a few discrepancies concerning how the police were contacted. Some articles state that some of the youth in the area were the ones that contacted them, leading the police to not care at all, while a fair amount of other articles express that it was the Okadas that phoned in the police and told them of what had happened to their friend. Regardless, in both versions of the story, the police never did anything, which has led to its own rabbit hole of conspiracies. The search party is the sole reason for Kazim and many others being found. What they didn't expect to find was what looked to be a building that was used for ritual sacrifice. There were tons of decomposing bodies, random body parts thrown about, numerous people who looked like they had been starving for God knows how long. Pictures began to surface of the horrors that lied within the forests of Ibadan and made tons of locals question why the police hadn't formed a search party of their own. Because if you think about it, the only reason the survivors survived is thanks to the impromptu search party for Kazim, which had nothing to do with police or any officials in Ibadan. And what's extremely off-putting is statements like this. We want to rescue our people who are still underground and crying for help, but the police are saying no, and we are angry. It's really strange that even after the police are shown proof of what has taken place here, with some of the victims even being shackled to the walls, they still don't want to help. And if you're wondering how exactly so many people were lured away during this situation, a lot of the victims have come out and expressed that the way in which they were lured away was because the kidnappers would pose as officials that were enacting a new plan in the area to urbanize the area. So they would lure them into this warehouse with the hopes of them helping and then do all sorts of weird stuff to them. Now, it's been a long time since this story took place, and since then, they've redeveloped the building that once housed absolute horror into a secondary school for kids in the area. And I really don't know what they were thinking building a school there, because given the way that things turned out the first time, I really don't think that many would feel safe sending their kids there. Now it brings us to the end of Midnight Frights Volume 5, otherwise known as the Disturbing Media series. If you want to know why this one took so long to come out and why it's been almost a year at this point since I posted a Disturbing Media series, stick around because I'm going to explain it. If you don't care, then you don't care. But basically what had happened, the reason I haven't posted this series in a long time, biggest reason is I wanted to find things that I found really interesting and that I feel like either hadn't been talked about in a long time or haven't been talked about at all. I haven't seen anyone talk about them. And the other thing was that I had like a bad merch drop. Initially, I had wanted to release these like pins and these stickers together, and I felt like that wasn't enough for a merch drop, so I was looking into getting beanies made. But by the time I was actually getting around to getting hooked up with a place and facility where I could get all that done, it was just too long. It was already like January, and like I felt like by the time I sold everything and got it shipped out, that winter would have already passed. There was a lot of problems that came up along the way. Besides that, I wanted to make shirts. I wanted to make these posters. I couldn't make it happen either. And then by the time that I was like, I felt as though I was ready, it just felt like it was too long. So, kind of I still have all the product in my, like literally behind me in the closet. I just haven't sold it or anything. If you want it, if people are think it looks cool, I'll probably put it up for cheaper than what I was originally planning. But yeah, the merch drop was a huge reason as to why I didn't end up uploading one for a long time, just because a lot of stuff happened with that. There's a whole story that I was trying to make happen with the Disturbing Media skits in the beginning. I'm still gonna end up doing that. Probably release their merch later as a merch drop with the skit. That was the whole point of the first skit that I did with the Disturbing Media plushie and stuff. But yeah, that was the two big reasons which led to this series getting just pushed off so long. But it's back. I'm not going to be posting it frequently because I still want to keep it fresh. I might do like more analog horror on this series, but I do want to go over more obscure things, kind of like the beginning part with like the Protect and Survive stuff, or like the 177 game, like these really obscure pieces of media that no one has really talked about. That's really what I want to do with this series. That's what I envision for it. If you guys have any suggestions for stuff like that you feel like people haven't talked about, leave it below. I would love to hear anything. You know, I love these rabbit holes, and it's a lot of fun. And yeah, with all of that said, let's get to the patron shout-out. Probably going to end up having to do like a censored version of this, so if that is in the beginning, go check it out. It's probably on Patreon for like $3. But if you're on screen, thank you. A lot. I'm always at a loss for words of what to say at the end of these videos, just because I feel like I say the same thing all the time. But it's cool to me that people still support me. You know, I've actually had like a lot of imposter syndrome the last few months, I guess, where like I don't even know if it's imposter syndrome, but like just not believing that I can do this. And every time I see the Patreon, I'm like, dude, like that's so cool that people believe in me still, even if they just forgot that they've signed up and haven't canceled it. It just nice to know that people out there believe in what I do and want to support me. So thank you all. I love you guys so much, and it really means a lot to get even just like any ounce of support, even just like liking the video or, you know, subscribing. All of that helps. And yeah, we'll leave it off with that. So with all of that said, I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.